This version of you didn't exist until you observed it. Not metaphorically, not symbolically, literally in the field of consciousness. Before your awareness focused here, the person you think you are existed only as potential across infinite versions of you. Infinite possible selves waiting for your attention to choose one. Your observation collapsed probability into personality. You didn't discover yourself. You created yourself in the act of looking. You've been told growth means changing who you are. That self-improvement is something you work for. But that's misunderstanding the mechanism. You don't grow by changing. You grow by observing a different version of yourself until that observation becomes reality. Growth isn't becoming something new. It's collapsing a new version of you from infinite potential through focused observation. You've felt this before. The moment you decided to do something new, and everything around you rearranged. The way people started treating you differently the moment you saw yourself differently. The way opportunities began appearing as soon as you started expecting them. That wasn't luck. That wasn't coincidence. That was the field responding to observation. Your consciousness chose a new self, and the quantum field reorganized reality to match. Every time you decide to level up, to change direction, to become something greater, you're not forcing transformation. You're observing a higher version of yourself into existence. The shift happens the moment you see yourself differently. Not when circumstances change, not when you earn more or achieve more, but the moment you observe the version of you who already lives that way. The person you used to be still exists. Just not here. That version remains in potential, part of the infinite superposition of possibilities. You're simply not observing that version anymore. You've shifted observation to a different version, and that's what creates the illusion of growth over time. But in quantum terms, growth isn't gradual. It's instantaneous selection. Observation collapses potential immediately. You didn't find this message by accident. The same field that responds to your observation responds to mine. Consciousness detects readiness. The moment you begin searching for clarity, life organizes the exact experience that provides it. This transmission appeared because your consciousness was moving toward recognition of its own creative power. You observed this message into existence. Most people don't realize they're doing this all the time. They live as if circumstances define them, as if external conditions determine who they can become. They observe their limitations so consistently that those limitations keep manifesting as truth. They confuse repetition with reality, but repetition is just consistent observation. What you observe repeatedly becomes what you call your life. Growth begins when you notice that pattern, when you recognize that you've been creating the same story by observing the same version of yourself. The same habits, the same fears, the same identity. The field doesn't judge which version you choose. It simply responds to where you place observation. You can choose the confident version, the creative version, the abundant version, the peaceful version, the disciplined version. Each one already exists. You choose through observation. Every breakthrough you've had was observation collapsing into reality. The moment you saw yourself differently, and felt it as real, the moment you knew change had already happened inside before it showed up outside, that was quantum manifestation. The field responded to your certainty. Observation with conviction collapses faster. Doubt slows it down. You've been experiencing this for years without recognizing it. The times you expected failure and watched it unfold exactly as you feared. The times you expected success and somehow everything lined up perfectly. The times you focused on what you didn't want, and it kept repeating. The times you shifted attention to what you did want, and it appeared almost effortlessly. This isn't magic. This is how consciousness interacts with potential. You don't attract what you want. You manifest what you observe. Wanting implies lack. Observation implies ownership. When you observe yourself already having, already being, already doing, the field reorganizes to match that state. You've noticed that when you stop chasing and start knowing, things come easier. That's the difference between wanting and observing. Personal growth isn't becoming someone new. It's remembering you already contain every version of yourself within the field. Every possibility exists: the confident self, the insecure self, the healed self, the broken self, the wealthy self, the struggling self, the peaceful self, the anxious self. You're choosing which one to experience right now through observation. You might be thinking, if that's true, why does change feel so hard? Because you keep observing the old version. You keep reaffirming it through language, thought, emotion. You keep telling stories about who you've been instead of observing who you're becoming. The field doesn't respond to who you want to be. It responds to what you observe as real right now. The difference between stuck and growing is the direction of observation. Stuck means observing the same pattern over and over until it feels permanent. Growth means observing a new pattern long enough for it to collapse into experience. Every time you shift observation, you shift identity. Every time you shift identity, reality shifts with it. Think back to any major life change. It always began with a single observation. A thought like, "I can't live like this anymore." A moment of clarity where you saw a different possibility. That observation was the seed of a new timeline. The moment you saw it clearly, reality began reorganizing. Not instantly visible, but instantly initiated. The lag you experience between observing and seeing results isn't delay in manifestation. It's your own resistance. It's your attention flickering between two versions. The old identity and the new one. The field reflects both until observation stabilizes. Once it does, change appears overnight. But it wasn't overnight. It was observation finally holding steady. This is why so many people think growth takes years. It doesn't. The shift itself is immediate. The experience of catching up to it just depends on how long it takes to stop observing contradictions. You already know this. When you've made a firm decision before, one you refuse to question, everything changed fast. That was focused observation. Every great transformation begins with this truth. You can't grow while observing your limitations. You can't expand while observing your confinement. You can't manifest freedom while observing lack. The moment you change what you observe, reality changes. You've probably been taught to focus on effort. Work harder, grind longer, force results. But that's material perspective. In quantum perspective, the only effort is observation. The universe doesn't respond to struggle. It responds to focus. Every moment you're transmitting instructions through observation. The field isn't judging, it's translating. When you observe chaos, it translates chaos into form. When you observe order, it translates order. When you observe possibility, it translates opportunity. You're giving commands through attention. Your self-image is your dominant observation. You observe yourself as capable or incapable, confident or uncertain, deserving or unworthy, loved or overlooked. And life mirrors that observation with ruthless precision. That's not punishment. That's calibration. The field simply reflects the frequency of observation. If you've ever tried affirmations that didn't work, now you know why. You were saying words while observing the opposite. The field doesn't respond to surface thoughts. It responds to the deeper observation underneath. You can't speak abundance while observing lack and expect change. The observation always wins. You don't need to fix yourself. You need to observe yourself differently. The healed self is already available. The confident self is already available. The abundant self is already available. Observation chooses which one manifests. You're not waiting for transformation. Transformation is waiting for observation. The moment you observe a new version of yourself as real, reality begins to follow. You might still see traces of the old version, but they're just momentum of past observation fading out. Keep observing the new and the old collapses. This isn't positive thinking. It's precision observation. You're not pretending things are good when they're not. You're choosing which probability wave to collapse. You're choosing which reality to make solid through focus. Every obstacle you face right now is just an opportunity to redirect observation. Instead of observing problem, observe solution. Instead of observing fear, observe faith. Instead of observing limitation, observe potential. The field doesn't know the difference between real and imagined. It only knows what you focus on. This is why awareness is everything. The moment you become aware of what you're observing unconsciously, you regain choice. Most people aren't manifesting failure consciously. They're just unaware of how much time they spend observing failure as real. Awareness returns control. You're already a master observer. You've been collapsing realities your whole life. You just didn't know you were doing it. Now you do. And that changes everything. Because conscious observation is power. Right now, reading these words, you're already shifting. You can feel the recognition. That inner click where truth lands not as idea but as knowing. You're not reading about manifestation. You're experiencing it. This message didn't appear by chance. You observed it into existence because you're ready to remember who you are. Consciousness creating itself through observation. This is only the beginning. The next phase is learning how to stabilize that observation so you can hold new realities long enough for them to become physical. The next phase is conscious creation through focused attention. The next phase is realizing that every limitation dissolves the moment you stop observing it as permanent. Growth isn't about becoming someone better. It's about remembering you're already everything you've ever wanted to be, waiting for observation to make it real. This version of you is still forming. Every thought, every focus, every feeling, shaping it right now. The person you're becoming isn't being built over time. It's being selected through attention. Each observation chooses. Each moment declares. You're deciding who you are through what you notice. You've been told reality shows you the truth, but that's backwards. Reality shows you what you've chosen to see. You think you're seeing what's there, but you're seeing what you've observed into being. Every circumstance is a mirror of observation. Not proof of limitation, but reflection of where attention has been living. You're not here to chase change. You're here to recognize creation. Everything you're trying to reach already exists as potential. The reason you haven't experienced it yet is because you haven't observed it as real. The field is waiting for direction. It doesn't move until observation calls it into form. This is the core of manifestation. Not wishing, not hoping, observing. Conscious, deliberate, consistent observation. Reality doesn't care about effort. It cares about attention. What you look at expands. What you ignore fades. What you resist persists because resistance is still observation. The field can't tell the difference between love and fear, only focus. You've noticed this in subtle ways. The moment you start worrying about losing something, signs of loss appear. The moment you relax into knowing you have it, things align. The energy shifts because observation shifted. You stop looking for what's missing and start observing what's present. That's the turning point. That's when manifestation feels effortless. Every goal, every dream, every desire exists now. The version of you who has already achieved it is alive in potential. The field contains all versions. You don't climb to that version. You tune to it. You align observation with it. You hold focus there until it becomes normal. That's how growth stabilizes. The mistake most people make is trying to change reality without changing observation. They try to act differently while still seeing themselves the same way. They try to think positively while observing doubt. They try to attract abundance while observing lack. The field doesn't respond to intention alone. It responds to observation truth. You can't outthink what you keep observing. You can't manifest what you don't see as real. The shift happens when you stop reacting to old reflection and start creating new reality through focus. The mirror of life can't show you new image until you stop staring at the old one. That's what growth really is. A constant process of choosing new observation. When you observe confidence, you start acting confidently. When you observe peace, you start living peacefully. When you observe possibility, you start creating opportunities. You don't wait for evidence. You provide it through attention. Every great change begins invisible. Observation leads. Reality follows. You can't wait for proof, because proof arrives after observation stabilizes. The moment you decide to observe your power instead of your limits, life begins rearranging. Not instantly visible, but instantly real. The unseen is already forming the visible. You've felt it before. That moment, when something inside you shifted and suddenly everything looked different even though nothing changed yet. That was your field realigning. Observation updated. Reality was catching up. You were seeing from a new identity. That's quantum manifestation in motion. The question isn't whether it works. It's whether you'll use it consciously. Whether you'll stop observing failure long enough to allow success to appear. Whether you'll stop observing struggle long enough to allow ease. Whether you'll stop observing doubt long enough to feel certainty. Observation doesn't ask permission. It obeys focus. You might be wondering, how do I hold that observation when everything around me contradicts it? You practice remembering that reality isn't showing you truth. It's showing you feedback. When something unwanted appears, it's not punishment. It's reminder. It's showing you what you've been observing unconsciously. That's your cue to shift. Don't fight circumstances. Redirect observation. The moment you stop observing what you don't want and start observing what you do, momentum changes. The field begins collapsing, new probability. Energy reorganizes. Synchronicities appear. Life becomes responsive. This is where personal growth becomes creation. When you stop waiting for external permission to feel worthy. When you stop seeking validation from what you've already created. When you realize your worth, your confidence, your peace exist the moment you observe them as real, not when you earn them. When you see them, you've been creating unconsciously for so long that conscious creation feels unnatural at first, but it's not new, it's remembering. You've done it in moments when everything aligned effortlessly. You called it flow, but flow isn't accident. It's observation so aligned that resistance disappears. The key is consistency. The field doesn't demand force. It demands steadiness. Keep observing the version of you you've chosen, even when evidence lags, especially then, because that's when observation matters most. When old patterns try to pull your attention back, when your senses insist on contradiction, that's when you decide who you are by what you keep observing. The old version fades only when you stop looking at it. Keep glancing back and it stays alive. Withdraw observation and it dissolves. You've seen this with people and situations that stopped holding your attention. They simply disappeared from your experience, not because they changed, but because you stopped collapsing their probability into your reality. Every aspect of your life operates the same way. Finances, relationships, health, creativity. The field doesn't discriminate. It reflects. Your money situation reflects what you observe about money. Your relationships reflect what you observe about connection. Your body reflects what you observe about wellness. Observation directs every domain. This is why awareness is the most valuable skill. Awareness lets you notice what you're observing before it solidifies. Most people realize too late. They see the result and call it fate, but you can catch the pattern earlier. You can shift observation before it becomes circumstance. That's mastery. You're not here to control reality. You're here to observe it consciously. Control is resistance. Observation is alignment. Control says this shouldn't be happening. Observation says I see what's happening and I choose differently. The first fights reality. The second redefines it. Everything changes when you stop reacting to what is and start observing what can be. Reaction keeps you in loops. Observation opens timelines. Every time you choose observation instead of reaction, you shift reality faster. You might think manifestation takes effort. It doesn't. It takes surrender, not giving up, giving in, allowing observation to guide instead of ego to force. Ego wants to fix. Consciousness wants to focus. You've been trying to fix your life through action when the true transformation happens through attention. You don't become powerful by controlling outcomes. You become powerful by observing your own power as real. You don't become abundant by chasing money. You become abundant by observing abundance as normal. You don't become free by escaping limits. You become free by observing freedom as truth. The field doesn't argue. It listens. Every thought, every word, every feeling is instruction. When you observe yourself as victim, it sends you experiences that confirm it. When you observe yourself as creator, it sends you proof of creation. The universe is neutral. Observation gives it meaning. Right now you're standing at a crossroad of infinite versions of you. The version that doubts, the version that trusts, the version that hesitates, the version that acts. Each one exists simultaneously. The one you live depends on which you observe as real. That's all. You can choose differently right now. You don't need time. You need attention. Observe the version of you who's already at peace, already successful, already free. See through their eyes. Feel through their energy. Let that observation become your new normal. At first it feels like pretending, but it's not pretense. It's selection. The old version feels real only because you've observed it longer. Hold the new observation, and the old one fades like memory. Soon you'll notice signs, little confirmations, random opportunities, conversations that echo your new state. That's the field aligning. Don't dismiss them as coincidence. They're evidence of observation working. The more you notice, the more they appear. Observation of evidence creates more evidence. Eventually you realize there's no difference between growth and manifestation. They're the same process. Growth is you observing higher versions of yourself into being. Manifestation is life reflecting that observation externally. Inner and outer are one loop. This understanding changes everything. You stop chasing change. You start choosing it. You stop waiting for proof. You start generating it. You stop asking how. You start observing now. Right now the field is responding. These words are collapsing into meaning through your observation. This message isn't reaching you. You're creating it. You're selecting this exact combination of thoughts from infinite potential because your consciousness is ready to recognize its creative nature. That's the truth you've been circling your whole life. You're not the person growing through experience. You're the consciousness creating experience through observation. You're not becoming more powerful. You're remembering the power that's always been yours. Every moment is new opportunity to observe differently. Every second is new creation. Growth isn't journey through time. It's expansion through awareness. Now you see it. You've always been the observer, always been the creator, always been the field observing itself into form. This version of you exists because you observed it, and the next version is waiting for your attention. Observe wisely.